Jennifer Kesse was a young woman living what seemed like the perfect life in Orlando, Florida. At just 24 years old, she had already built a successful career in real estate, owned her own condominium, and was deeply loved by her family and friends. She had recently returned from a Caribbean vacation with her boyfriend, feeling refreshed and ready to get back to work. Everything about her life seemed stable, organized, and full of promise. But on the morning of January 24th, 2006, that sense of normalcy vanished. Jennifer was supposed to be at her job at Central Florida Investments, where she was known for her punctuality and professionalism. When she didn't show up and failed to call in, her co-workers immediately knew something was wrong. Her parents, Drew and Joyce Kesse, grew concerned after multiple unanswered calls and texts. This was completely unlike Jennifer. Within hours, they made the 2-hour drive from their home in Tampa to Orlando, desperate to find out what had happened. When they arrived at her condo, nothing seemed disturbed. Her car was missing, but the rest of her life appeared frozen in time. The outfit she planned to wear to work was laid neatly on her bed. A damp towel hung in the bathroom, suggesting she had just showered. Makeup items were scattered across the counter, as if she had been getting ready in a rush. Her phone, purse, and keys were gone. But there was no sign of a struggle, no broken locks, and no clues pointing to what happened next. The police were notified soon after. But in those crucial early hours, the case was treated as a routine missing person report. Officers suggested Jennifer might have gone away voluntarily or had a misunderstanding. Her family refused to believe it. Jennifer had just returned from vacation, was planning a future with her boyfriend, and loved her job. There was no reason for her to leave without a word. As night fell, search teams and volunteers began combing through nearby areas, calling her name and checking ditches, parks, and parking lots. Yet there was no trace of Jennifer anywhere. It was as if she had stepped out of her apartment that morning and simply disappeared into thin air. 2 days after Jennifer's disappearance, a major breakthrough came, or at least it seemed that way. Her black Chevy Malibu was discovered parked at the Huntington on the Green apartment complex, just over a mile from her own condo. The car was found by police after a resident reported it sitting strangely in the same spot for days. Officers rushed to the scene, hoping that inside the vehicle they would find the clue that could finally explain where Jennifer had gone. At first glance, the car appeared ordinary, almost too neat. There were no signs of a struggle inside, no blood, no damage. Her belongings inside seemed untouched, though the driver's seat had been pushed back, suggesting that whoever drove it last was taller than Jennifer. Detectives dusted for fingerprints, but what they found only deepened the mystery. Most of the prints belonged to Jennifer or her family, but a few unknown ones couldn't be matched to anyone in the database. Even worse, a heavy rainstorm had swept through the night before, washing away any trace evidence that might have been on the car's exterior. The real turning point came when investigators obtained security footage from the apartment complex. In the video, a figure could be seen parking Jennifer's car, calmly stepping out and walking away. The footage was eerie, almost surreal. The person moved with confidence, unhurried, and seemed to know exactly where they were going. But what frustrated investigators most was that every frame showing the person's face was obscured by a fence post along the walkway. Each time the camera caught a glimpse, the post perfectly blocked the suspect's head. Law enforcement spent countless hours analyzing the footage, trying to determine whether the person was a man or woman, young or old, but the image quality was too poor to say for certain. The figure's build and clothing offered no solid leads. To this day, that person remains unidentified. The car's discovery should have brought answers, but instead it only created more questions. Who parked it there? Why choose that specific location so close to her home? And most haunting of all, what happened to Jennifer after that car left her driveway that morning? As the days turned into weeks, investigators began to dig deeper into every corner of Jennifer Kesse's life, searching for any clue that could explain her sudden disappearance. They started with her relationships, her boyfriend, family, and close friends. Every person was questioned, every timeline examined, and every phone call traced. Yet there was nothing suspicious to be found. Her boyfriend was out of town at the time, and phone records confirmed his alibi. Her friends described her as happy and focused, with no signs of distress or plans to leave. It was as if Jennifer had simply vanished without reason. Detectives then shifted their attention to Jennifer's condominium complex. It was undergoing major construction at the time, and dozens of workers were on site daily. Some of these workers, investigators learned, were not properly documented or even known by name. Jennifer's parents recalled that she had mentioned feeling uncomfortable around certain workers who would catcall or stare at her while she walked to her car. It raised unsettling questions. Could one of them have been watching her more closely than she realized? The police conducted interviews with several of the workers, but language barriers and poor record-keeping made it nearly impossible to track everyone down. No solid evidence connected any of them to Jennifer's disappearance. Forensics teams searched her apartment and car again, hoping to find a trace of DNA, hair, or fibers, but nothing meaningful turned up. Dogs trained to detect human scent were brought in and traced Jennifer's trail from her condo to the parking lot, and then it abruptly stopped. There was no sign of a struggle, no witnesses who saw her leave, and no sound that suggested anything unusual had happened that morning. As time passed, tips started flooding in from across Florida. Some claimed to have seen a woman resembling Jennifer at gas stations, stores, and even along highways. Others sent letters describing dreams or visions. Every lead was investigated, and every one of them ended in disappointment. The case that had once felt urgent and solvable was quickly becoming one of silence and confusion. Jennifer's disappearance was no longer just a missing person case. It was turning into a haunting mystery with no clear path forward. Years passed, and Jennifer Kesse's disappearance continued to baffle investigators, private detectives, and the public alike. With no solid evidence, theories began to multiply, each one trying to explain how a young woman could vanish in broad daylight without leaving a trace. Some believed Jennifer was abducted while heading to her car early that morning. The idea was that someone had been waiting, possibly someone familiar with her schedule. Her condo complex, still under renovation, provided the perfect cover. Strangers came and went every day without raising suspicion. It wouldn't have been difficult for someone to observe her routine and strike at the right moment. Another theory suggested Jennifer was followed or taken by someone she knew, perhaps a co-worker or acquaintance with hidden motives. Investigators explored her professional life, wondering if anyone at her workplace had shown unusual interest in her. She was well-liked, ambitious, and confident, but success can attract the wrong kind of attention. Yet again, nothing concrete surfaced. Every person close to her had an alibi, and none of the evidence pointed to a specific suspect. Over time, attention turned to the mysterious figure seen in the security footage parking her car. Experts analyzed the video repeatedly, debating whether it showed a man or a woman, a worker or a stranger. The calm, deliberate movements hinted at someone who knew exactly what they were doing, someone unafraid of being caught. But without a clear image, the person's identity remained hidden behind that fence post, forever out of reach. Private investigators hired by Jennifer's family later uncovered disturbing details about her apartment complex. Security cameras were limited, lights were broken, and records of workers and contractors were poorly kept. Some of the workers had already returned to their home countries, making follow-up impossible. It became increasingly likely that the answer lay somewhere among those untraceable individuals. Despite the growing number of theories, one thing was certain: Jennifer's disappearance was not random. It was planned, executed quickly, and carefully covered up. Someone had managed to erase nearly every trace of their involvement, leaving behind a trail of questions that only deepened the longer time passed. Almost 2 decades have passed since Jennifer Kesse vanished, yet her story continues to echo through the streets of Orlando. For her family, the pain never faded. Each day without answers felt like reliving the same nightmare. They kept her memory alive, refusing to let her case slip into silence. Billboards, news interviews, and annual vigils ensured that Jennifer's name remained in the public eye. Her parents turned their grief into determination, working tirelessly to pressure law enforcement to keep the investigation active and to bring new attention to her case. Over the years, the Orlando Police Department has revisited the evidence countless times, hoping that advancements in technology might uncover what earlier investigations missed. Forensic tools that didn't exist in 2006 are now capable of analyzing even the smallest traces. But despite re-examining the car, her apartment, and other items, nothing new has surfaced that could definitively explain what happened. Each new detective who takes the case expresses the same frustration. So many leads, but not a single one leading to the truth. Private investigators working with the Kesse family have uncovered a few promising clues. including potential witnesses who recall seeing suspicious individuals around the complex during that time. Some tips have pointed to human trafficking networks operating in the region, raising the grim possibility that Jennifer may have been abducted and taken far from home. Others believe the person seen on surveillance footage was a worker who managed to blend back into obscurity. Despite so many possibilities, the truth remains buried under years of uncertainty. What keeps this case alive is the relentless love of Jennifer's family and the haunting mystery of how someone could simply vanish from an ordinary morning routine. Jennifer's disappearance has changed how many people view safety, trust, and awareness. Her story became a symbol, a reminder that danger can hide in plain sight, and that answers sometimes lie closer than anyone dares to imagine. Somewhere, someone still knows what happened that morning. Until that truth comes to light, the question that has haunted Orlando for years will continue to echo. Where is Jennifer Kesse?